Hello.
It worked. All right. I was just about to email it because I had to enter it by hand to text it. But the Zoom links are pretty easy. So,
Yeah.
hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kim Duramo, and I am welcoming my beautiful, amazing, inspired guest, who is also a physician, Dr. Shiroko Sokitch. She has been conventionally trained in a surgical residency and then practiced in the emergency room for many years, but also has a background in Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, functional medicine, has been really an open-minded doctor and explorer, very much interested in really looking at what makes us heal and understanding that, and then integrating that into her approach with individuals, with kids, to understand what creates imbalance and then assist the body in coming back into balance. Her most recent book is Healing When It Seems Impossible. It has 7 keys to really unlock health and allow that vitality to come through. She practices in California. Currently, she's at Heart to Heart Medical Center, and she can be found at hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com. But she's really an expert in so many areas of wellness and is also a special friend of mine. We've been very heart connected since we met, and I wanted to share her perspective specifically for kids with anxiety and understanding the whole picture of what's going on with the family and parents, and for the child specifically, to give us some insight and really wonderful tools to use for this. So welcome, Shiroko.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I hope that introduction was okay. I know there's a lot more to what you do. So let's look at, and we didn't talk too much before about this because I knew we would just want to record everything that you've shared. What would be your approach to kids with anxiety, and what's your thinking on the whole of what's going on here and so many kids being challenged with such severe anxiety problems?
Well, it's not just kids being challenged with anxiety, because everybody's anxious these days, but in particular with kids with anxiety, it's a many factored approach, so this is actually goes into my 7 keys of, finding all the different elements that are connected, because a difficult problem isn't just, take this medicine or eat this food, or, this is not just a simple thing. So first of all, there's all of the, chemicals in our environment, and more and more kids that I see, especially at younger and younger ages, are having reactions to so much stuff, like newborn baby, like several of my patients have these tiny little newborn babies that are already having rashes and issues with their health at such a young age, even though they're being breastfed and their moms are being as healthy as possible. But you get a lot of toxins through breast milk, actually. And we have so many chemicals in our environment, and so much of our food is polluted, and so much, so here's these very sensitive little tiny babies being born, and there's all these chemicals in their bodies already. So that's first, is thinking about chemicals and toxins and exposures, and finding a way to be as clean as possible in what they eat. And there's a lot of literature and talk about dairy and gluten in particular, because of the various amounts of chemicals in those foods, and a lot of people react to them. So there's the chemicals, there's what they eat, there's the relationship between the mother and the child and the family. And so if the mother's anxious or the family is struggling with something, then the baby is going to pick it up, or the child is going to pick it up. And then there's everything that's happening in the news. Let's say we can go on and on and on. So first of all, I want to say that anxiety is not just because a lot of people kind of put it away as oh, it's not that big a deal. Anxiety is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And for a child to be anxious is huge, because there's so many things. When I first started studying medicine, I remember thinking life is a miracle. And it was especially because they showed us, and you did this when you studied medicine too, but you see this video or pictures of an infant, or the development of an embryo, and what a miracle it is to just even get to a live human being. And then every day it's a miracle. And in our the exposures that we have now and all of the things that are going on, it's just like, how do you get more balanced? So I keep it fairly simple, even though it sounds complicated. So first of all, figure out what toxins there are. So use as many clean products in your house as you can. Keep your house, don't use chemicals. Buy laundry detergent that's organic. Have bedding that's not made with flame retardant, and have like cotton organic bedding. Have the room, if you need an air filter, have an air filter. Feed the child organic, healthy food. Stay away from gluten and sugar in particular, because like all of the cereals that they make, there's so much sugar in those cereals. And then, so if the first thing that you eat in the morning is a sugary cereal with milk that's usually, only 2% or 1% fat or whatever, and so then you're not getting the good fat, you're not getting the good nutrients, and then you go to school and you're supposed to function on, when your blood sugar goes up, and then it comes down, because a sugary cereal will make your blood sugar go way up, which makes you hyper, and then come down. So many parents that I've worked with have already discovered this. So you may also have discovered this, is if they eat sugar or if they eat foods that they react to, their behavior is crazy. Their anxiety will go through the roof. And I remember this woman that I knew in medical school. She was a mother of 5 children. She was going through medical school. She had 5 kids. And I always ask, because her kids were the best behaved kids you ever saw. She said, as an adult, you are dealing with a tiny little person, and that person's existence is to please you. So as long as you make sense to your child, then they will listen to you. So a lot of parents think that they can't get their kids to eat a certain way. And what I say is, if you make it make sense to them, that you care about them and that it's important for their health, they're going to listen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about getting them to do what you want them to do. It's about helping them understand it's best for them.
Yeah.
And I think that you're nailing it right on, that you've got to allow that kid to, it has to make sense to them. Right. It has to be like, what's in it for me?
Yeah. And, when they're really young, maybe they don't understand, but I think if you present yourself with love and caring and calmness, so you have to be calm as the parent, to pass this message on. But if you're caring and your love for that child, they're going to listen to you. I have a patient who's 10 years old, and he's the height of a 4-year-old. And he's been very, 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 very sick. And one of his issues is dairy. As soon as mom stopped breastfeeding and he went on formula, he started getting sick. He's 10 years old. He has Hashimoto's. He has severe autoimmune disease, and communicating and getting the mom to see like the connection between all the toxins in his environment and the foods that he eats. Because even when I took him off grains and dairy, she still gave him corn chips.
Yeah.
Until he got worse again. And then, so now she's finally ready to listen, so like, but and hopefully most kids aren't this sick, so he's like a canary in the coal mine, but the foods that we eat make a huge amount of difference in terms of how a child will feel, and then there's all of the ways of communicating and the ways of expressing yourself so that the child will get the message that he's loved and that he's
that's a major piece, because like you said, if there's an anxious mother, or if you're even just worried about your kid, or worried about their food and worried about the environment, and there's a lot of fear, as opposed to, I'm going to do the best I can, inform myself, take care of what I can, and let go of what I can't control, and just do the best I can with what I've got, and let the universe take care of the rest. There is a totally different space that we parent from.
Yeah,
we receive way more than trying to micromanage every, toxin or diet thing, or, all the food, which you can't. But if you're in a centered place, will you talk about that? Like what you've seen there with the relationship with the mother? Or
I have one mom whose kid is super, super sensitive. And I think he might be 11 now or 10 or something, but she you know, he went to Waldorf schools, and he can't, if he has gluten, he's crazy for 3 or 4 days. So he may not have celiac, and so, a lot of kids don't have celiac. But one of the things that she does is she just stays connected to him, and communicates with him, and takes, you know, they're traveling the world right now, like, so he's having this huge adventure there, and of course the foods that they eat are much different when they're traveling in different places in the world, and maybe he can't get the right foods, but she's still always there and communicating with him, and help. And even though she has a huge amount of anxiety herself, she keeps herself grounded for him, and helps him understand the importance of what he's doing. So from a very young age, he understood the importance of certain things for his own health. And so he's become sort of a leader when he goes to the different schools. He's kind of a leader because he's kind and he's generous, and he, you know, so there's so many ways of helping your kid have the best experience possible, you know. So what was your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's super valuable to see. So cleaning up the, you know, exposure, food, chemicals, air, bedding, and then also looking at the relationship of how we're communicating with them. Mm-hmm. And then what they're getting exposed to with like news and media and the environment. Yeah. And what other things have you seen, like any specifics of approaches or tools or, I don't know, supplements, solutions that you found to be generally applicable?
Vitamin D and
okay.
Vitamin D and omegas. Omegas make a huge difference, and it's hard, you know, like because of the heavy metals and the poisons in our ocean, taking omegas from fish, eating fish is, I think, a bit problematic, because we can't filter out all the poisons. And again, kids are smaller bodies, and so getting the poisons from, like now the recommendation for eating fish when a woman is pregnant, they say don't eat fish at all during pregnancy because of all the poisons, you know. And it's not just,
would they get omegas from, are there fish oils that are clean, or they get them from where?
Well, you get them from fish oil, or you can get them from algae, the kind that you need. So algae has DHA, so it's the only other besides fish oil that has DHA, and DHA is vitally important to the brain development. And so during pregnancy and during childhood, having plenty of good omega-3s is vital. And when you buy high quality fish oil supplements, they've been filtered, they've been checked for radiation, they've been cleaned, you know, so that you're getting just the omega-3s and not all the poisons. And so it's one of the cases, you know, a lot of people say we want everything from food. And of course you do want as much as you can of your nourishment from food. But in this case, eating fish isn't safe.
Okay. So we can use fish oil. We can use algae. How do we get it in the form of, how do we get it like that?
Garden of Life makes a product. It's vegan. So it's vegan omega-3s. So you look for a product called vegan omega-3s. And the algae is usually grown in a tank, so it's not full of the whatever's in the ocean. Okay. And you can also eat like spirulina and chlorella. Those are pretty high in omega-3s.
I eat a ton of spirulina.
Yeah.
But I don't give it to my kids. I don't think they would go for that. But the fish oil,
not delicious.
Yeah. Well, I've used the one that is Barlean's, and it's like it tastes good. You know, it's like a creamsicle.
Oh, wow. Oh yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah.
I think it's a little maybe pricier, but it has all the good stuff in it. But I haven't been giving it to my 9-month-old. So since he's not breastfeeding as much, I just realized that that's probably going to be a smart thing to supplement him.
And then you want to just make sure their vitamin D levels are good, because that's essential to the development of their nervous system.
Yes. So they both get that. But how would you recommend we dose that for general use for kids?
Well, you have to kind of know their levels, or if you're breastfeeding, then you have to know your level, and your level has to be in a good range. And a good range is a level between 50 and 70.
Okay.
So that's higher than, most labs or doctors' offices say. So like the normal range is usually like 29 to 55 or something.
Yeah.
And so if you're 30, they say you're normal.
Right.
But 30 is still too low for really good. And kids, their nervous system is developing, and their nervous system regulates their hormones and their immune system. So that's all really important. So
the recommendation for ages, like I know for my little baby, they've had me give him 400 IUs a day. Does that sound right?
yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I
And
don't like
then for
the
my
really high dosing, so I like to keep it sort of consistent and sort of normal dosing. So
okay. And then for my 6-year-old, we use 1,000 a day. What would you say for different, or do you have a guideline for different age kids, how much they should take?
I base it on what their levels are. So 400 would be good for a little tiny baby up to probably 1 or 2. And then, then they get older and maybe 500 to 600 IUs. So the liquid is really easy because one drop is 1,000 IUs. 6-year-old, I think 1,000, 6 to 10 would probably be 1,000 to 2,000 a day. So but if a kid is sick, and most of the kids I see, they have some kind of immune challenge, like, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
So then I give a higher dose, like 2,000.
Okay.
If they're sick a lot or their levels are really low. There's a lot of stuff about vitamin D for adults, and there's some people that give adults 50,000 IUs a day or 50,000 IUs a week, and I don't know that that's the best way to go.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different ways people are using it. I've come across that as well. I do like 2,000 or 5,000 a day and just keep it at that.
Yeah.
But I know this is one of the areas where like conventional MDs and more expansive minded, or even like Eastern medicine and homeopathic, holistic, whatever, everyone kind of agrees that vitamin D is a standard necessity for daily, and omegas as well. So I think
It's
these should
become
be
a standard. Yes, we love when weirdo things become standard.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
So these are two really, really great recommendations nutritionally. So thank you.
Yeah. And then, so for a child that's anxious, you want lots of B vitamins. So, but again, for a child that's anxious, the diet makes so much difference. So staying away from sugar basically is staying away from all sugar completely if possible, and feeding them a high protein, high quality food, with lots of veggies, some fruit, and high quality proteins, which can be vegan or vegetarian as well as meat and not, because some kids sort of naturally tend towards being vegetarian. You just want to keep it balanced. So blood sugar is really key to not feeling anxious. And so when you get breakfast in the morning and it has protein, then your blood sugar reaches a certain level. And then if you have had protein and good fat, then it stays stable for a longer period of time. And if they're going to school, their blood sugar is staying more stable. And then at lunchtime, they get a high quality food as well. Then if their blood sugar stays stable, they're going to be less anxious. They're going to be more able to focus.
What are more like those high quality foods for like proteins and fats? How would people go and find what you're speaking of? How do they go to the grocery store? What do they look for, or where do they shop, or how do you figure that out?
Well, you go for organic as much as possible. High quality foods, like vegetables, all kinds of vegetables, and you can make them in attractive ways. You can make like a little quiche and put it in a little container for their lunch, and that could have spinach and some, I don't know, all kinds of.
I put broccoli and asparagus and onions, and we're big on that.
Yeah. And that's a great way to get vegetables, right? On breakfast, you can make a shake with all kinds of greens in it, and they won't even taste it because you can put a banana and you can put some yummy things. And so, everything has to taste good. And for kids, especially, they love the right texture of food. So it's very particular for the different children, right? Healthy nut butters. So peanut butter, almond butter, like a lot of people say don't eat peanut butter, but if you get really high quality peanut butter that's organic and hasn't had any chemicals added, and they're not allergic to it because there's allergies, then you could have some peanut butter and some celery sticks, or some peanut butter and carrots, or almond butter and carrots, like, so those kinds of things.
Yeah, my daughter loves that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It always goes over well.
Yeah, there's all kinds of easy little fun things to give kids to eat that are not full of sugar and that will help them have their ability to concentrate.
Do you have resources people can find where you have like recipes or things like that? Or just on your...
I don't have that in writing at the moment.
but they can go to your site and probably get like resources for stuff that you're sharing about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heart to Heart medicalcenter.com. I know even for me myself, it's always good to have the reminder of like what we're speaking about here with creative ways of doing the food for kids. And I think especially for parents to learn how grounding foods can be, and how, the opposite, when we have foods that are loaded with chemicals and toxins and things like that, it's working against us. So it's not such a great way to go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
When we do B vitamins, what are your suggestions there? Because I know there's like B complex and then there's specific B vitamins. There's so many different ways to do it.
I kind of prefer the B vitamins to be given together for most people, so that there's not a huge, like a lot of people will say take B12 or B6 or inositol, like all these different way of individual, but I like them all together because they do work together. So I like a good B complex. Companies that make good products are like Pure Encapsulations. One of my favorites is Metabolic Maintenance, because they have everything in glass bottles, and I like glass bottles.
Okay.
Because
it's cleaner.
It's cleaner, yeah. And they also don't add anything to their vitamins. Kids that tend to be anxious, so this could be a really long conversation if you want, but people who tend to have a lot of anxiety may also have certain genetic imbalances where they cannot process certain B vitamins. And that is called methylation. Yeah. And the methylation, about 40% of the population cannot methylate. And if you can't methylate, you're more prone to certain psychiatric issues, because being able to methylate allows you to make serotonin and dopamine and epinephrine. And
so then they would need to take the methylated B complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I don't really know if I have that myself, but I've used the methylated, like when I took folic acid when I was pregnant, I always took the methylated versions of things because I thought, let me just give myself the best chance of having those nutrients. Would you recommend that?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Okay. And we can find the methylated version for
all professional level supplements now have methylated B vitamins in them because so many people have this issue.
All right.
But if you've got food-based vitamins at like Whole Foods or places like that, if you get like Garden of Life food-based, that's one brand, and I think Rainbow Light makes food-based vitamins. There's several companies that make food-based vitamins. They will not be methylated.
Okay.
So, and there's benefits to both, so again, it just depends on the person, like what would be right for you or your child. But if you feel super sensitive and you tend to be anxious anyway, as a parent, then you might consider that or you're super sensitive to things, like if you take a medication and you will react to it more strongly than most, or you can smell things in the environment more strongly than most, and you might have that gene. And so you would consider having the methylated vitamins and giving them to your kids.
Okay, perfect. And so you would recommend for the mother as well. I'm just saying this because it might not be that clear that we, as a mother, we're taking omega, we're taking vitamin D, we're taking the vitamin B complex, just to balance out our own system as well as giving it to our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it's just natural as a family that you eat organic to the highest degree that you can. Like the other day I ran into the grocery store and they were out of organic avocados. And my system was like, because he eats tons of avocados. He's only eating organic. And I was like, Kim, buy a couple avocados, you're doing, because it was way more disruptive for me to try to go to a different store. It was like, Kim, you got everything you need. It's okay. So I bought him the avocados, and I know we can get very obsessive about this, or we can just do it in grace and ease and do the best we can to use organic and put lots of veggies. And, you know, my 6-year-old is not eating tons of veggies right now. I try every day at dinner to just, there's something. And I know I've got to let this one go right now. This is not the day where I'm going to be like, here's this perfection of diet. But that the way I'm doing her food is way more important than like what is in it every day, that it's this meticulous thing. Yeah. So to the best of our ability.
Avocados are in the clean 15. So do you know about the dirty dozen and the clean?
Yes. But share this so that we all know.
So there's a website called Environmental Working Group that every parent needs to know about. Every human needs to know, because they're amazing. But they list what's in cosmetics. They list what's in all kinds of things, and the safety of the ingredients. So cosmetics, house cleaning products, things like that. But also they list the pesticide containing foods. And there are 12 foods that you should never eat not organic.
All right. And what's the site again before we get into that?
Environmental Working Group. It's EWG.com, I think.
EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.com. Okay. I'll double check it right now. Okay, great. So the foods.
Yes. So, and they have the clean 15, and avocados are amongst the clean 15. So if you can't find something that's organic, you know, then you feel safe eating avocado because it's on that list of foods that are safe, even if they're not organic. The dirty dozen, I can't remember, but spinach is one of them.
Yeah, apples,
strawberries, and apples. So you never want to give anybody an apple that's not organic. And you know, like kids often get apple juice at school, like and the stuff that's in that apple juice could be enough to, you know. Anyway, I don't want to carry on. So.
Well, it's ewg.org is the site. And I definitely think this is going to be a great resource. Again, not something to be obsessive about, but something to be informed so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves and our kids. And yes, the dirty dozen, I think it's good to have that guideline. Like, when is it like, oh, definitely it's not, because it, you know, you're going to pay more money for organic. Sometimes you have to go to a different store. When am I really putting, you know, where my efforts best served? So I think getting that information is really, really helpful, you know.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Oh, thank you. This is super, super helpful. I didn't know about the clean 15. I've heard about the dirty dozen for sure, but
yeah,
we get a free pass with the clean 15.
Yeah.
Well, and hopefully with more and more people awakening, it will change how we do things on a mass scale with food production, what we're putting into kids' food, what we're putting into our produce and things like that, that we'll be able to make wiser choices about how we're doing things like this. And in the meantime, to do the best we can to receive what's available to us for our health.
Yeah. You know, there's somebody I should share with you too. There's this wonderful woman that I know. She is in her late 70s, and she had a spiritual calling to help children who were special. And she helps families communicate with kids who are having a difficult time. And
I've heard of this woman. I've seen her talk.
Have you seen her? Name? Her name's Catherine Brewer.
Catherine Brewer. All right, I will.
Yeah, she is, because she talks about like the higher spiritual elements, and that is something to keep in mind, that there's you know, there's all of the stress that we have on our planet, but there are also souls and beings who are here to elevate us. And I think that there are a lot of children who are here to help us, you know, like, and we always think we're here to help them, but their beings and their energy is here for us. And so they may have a more difficult time with the normal things on this planet. And so to honor them rather than to think that they're sick.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up as a resource, because
Yeah,
there
to
are
create
different.
understanding and to always approach it from love rather than, again, thinking there's something wrong with this child. No, maybe there's not something wrong. Maybe that's just that their paradigms are different.
Yes, yes. For
And to
those
work
kids,
with
it's
that.
really hard to function in a society with so much suppression, where we're not aware of our emotions, where we're really disconnected from ourselves. And for this woman, and I've heard her speak before, she's allowing wisdom to come in through very different channels than what we conventionally, you learn something in a book and you read about it, and now I know this thing and I can teach it. That's not going to cut it for so much of the acceleration of what is happening for us on the planet. And so more and more people are beginning to connect with higher wisdom and know things very, very immediately, like a download, to be able to assist with what's going on. And she's certainly one of those people.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll include that as a resource here. Anything else you want to leave us with that we haven't touched on for, kids with anxiety, or things that you've seen, or things that are helpful?
Well, again, so, I wrote my book, Healing When It Seems Impossible, to help people when things are not easily apparent. And always the most important thing is love. And so rather than approaching, and I know it's sometimes difficult when a kid's anxious and you need to get them out the door and to school, or when a kid's freaking out about something and you need to fit into the time frames of our, everyday lives. Try to let that go and try to come from the love that you have for that child, and listen closely, because there might be something else going on that you don't understand.
Beautiful.
And, I know you love your kids. I know that there's probably no stronger love than the love that we have for our kids, but try to call that to the forefront when things are challenging. So.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. I think that is the most important, essential thing that allows us to know what's required, or just to be the space that is healing for our kids.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shiroko. You are amazing. Such a beautiful person, such an amazing doctor to be doing this work in the world. So I just want to list again where people can find you at hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com. And her book is Healing When It Seems Impossible. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.